The next session is looking at the work of the TTF working groups. So any of you that understand the TTF know that we have 6 working groups, and they're really the engine room of the TTF. That's where the really good stuff happens. So each of the groups has a chair, and we have the chairs all here. They're going to give you a quick 10-minute update on the work that's been happening in their group. Now again, this is part update and part advertisement. If you're not involved in any of the groups and you hear some stuff going on that you're really interested in, or you think there's a group there that really fits in the area that is my interest, my company's interest or whatever, please get involved. The working groups are there to be joined, and the working groups are there to, well, basically do work. So if you're interested in anything you hear today, please come to speak to me or any of the group chairs and get involved in the work of the working group. So I've asked each working group to speak for 10 minutes. I'm going to be ruthless with sticking to 10 minutes. So we have the armaments armed and pointing at the lectern to get you if you speak for 11 minutes. And in a slight change of order from the agenda, because Sarah needs to go off and do something else, I'm going to ask Sarah Randall to come up first and just give us 10 minutes on the work of the Smarter Parking Working Group. Thank you.
Good morning all. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah Randall and I am the Assistant Director for Traffic and Parking at the London Borough of Newham. I also hold the honour of chairing the Smarter Parking Group for the TTF. I'm going to start with my first plea. If there is anyone in the room who has anything they think would be of interest to us, whether you are a private company, someone of interest or a local authority, whether it's a new piece of technology or something you have tried, we'd be really interested in hearing from you and seeing what you're working on. I'm going to talk through a couple of the projects that we have talked through with the main focus on the National Parking Platform, which I think is probably the key thing within the Smarter Parking Group that we're working on. There have been a number of other projects that have been worked on. So there's the Alliance for Parking Data Standards, for which the National Parking Platform probably is underpinned. National Parking Platform, as always. And then there's a couple of other people who've been to talk to us recently. So there is a project about persistent evaders from a company called Just, for those of you who know Alan Wood, and looking at how we tackle those people who aren't performing in the way they want, so they're not registered with the DVLA and don't have insurance, and all of the challenges around that. And then there's Appiway and parking sensors and how we maximise the parking data that we have. I'm going to start with looking at the National Parking Platform and currently looking at what the model is. The current model and marketplace looks a bit like this, which is there's a level of confusion, and it's a pretty spaghetti diagram which creates a level of disharmony within the market. After the introduction of the APDS, Alliance for Parking Data Standards, which BPA are a part owner, the communication and the alignment of systems has been far easier for us to operate, which is kind of where the National Parking Platform pilot, which has been funded by the DFT with Manchester City Council, has come from. Just so I'm being really clear, because they've helped with the slides, Parking Matters are the project managers for the parking platform. Okay, this diagram shows that the current relationship between parking operators, parking suppliers, and customers. The MPP takes the aspects of the Smarter Mobility Challenge and makes it a digitally easy and achievable for even small parking operators to change. It enables both digitally visible and multi-vendor payments. To show how this works, we have grouped stakeholders and operators into private and public service providers, payment apps, guidance services, and bookings, and the end customers. This diagram simplifies the relationship for suppliers and users, which is the diagram on the left. However, actually, if we were to move forward with multi-councils, the new multi-vendor diagram would simplify so we could operate with around 300 operators and 50 service providers. And actually, the simplicity of how it works for you as a local authority sitting as one of the service providers, which is always the view I take it from, because I'm a local authority rather than from a private company. But I think the simplicity translates onto the other side of the market as well. So from a customer perspective, this is how it looks. The MPP enables operators to relate directly to one another, but revenue payments from any service provider dues goes to the person who makes to the supplier that makes the transaction, and then there is a digital transaction of that money back to the local authority. The advantage of this, which we'll talk about in more detail, is actually rather than local authorities having to have multiple vendor contracts, actually there is one procurement with the National Parking Platform rather than with 10 providers. At the same time, any service provider that passes the due diligence to be part of the platform can join, which gives greater access to all operators that they then don't have to keep going through the tendering process. Benefits, which is always where, as a local authority, I'm looking at what will this achieve. Sorry, I keep pressing buttons on this. There are three main benefits from a customer point of view. I think actually the ability to have more knowledge about where there is space available, one app rather than multiple apps depending upon where you live, and actually being able to integrate that with the smarter parking world of EV charging. And I think later on things like connected vehicles, the WSP were talking about earlier, the whole of this process will start to tie into that system and how that works. So for me, the MPP appears to be a win for everyone, although there are some potential changes to the business models that we currently have. From an operator's perspective, I'm a local authority, so this is me thinking what your advantages would be, and you can tell me at the end if you think I'm wrong. But actually, I think from your perspective, there will be reduced costs, because actually you're not going through the tendering process. I think that there will be an increase in customer experience because you're going to be developing stuff directly for customers rather than trying to fulfill the demands of a tendering process. And I think long term that will help create a more sustainable model. In creating a more sustainable model, I think that makes the marketplace a much stabler place to be, and actually I think will help create innovativity within the market. Customers and motorists also then get a greater choice of who they choose to use rather than it being predetermined by us and the procurement process. How is this all going to be achieved? It's achieved because we have the standardisation of parking data via the APDS and creates an interface that operates supplier or services providers that they can both use simultaneously. It will also provide a route into the future for connected vehicles to provide information on their status to operators and service providers, as well as other services beyond parking. So EV charging, tolls, cycle hubs, and one of the conversations I've had today around electric scooters and how they then integrate into the network. Subject to legislation change, of course. How the system actually works. So I am not a technical person. For those of you who know me, I am not an IT person. But the fact that actually this demonstrates really simply how the process of data flows and then flows back. And then the next diagram starts to integrate how the money flows and how that will integrate into your back office systems. So I know a number of the key back office systems like Conduent and WSP and Imperial have started to have these conversations to join up to the network. So actually it becomes a seamless transaction. So you as parking managers or highways managers, actually you can then just see a data file with all the information in there that relates to your finance team rather than actually having to go through all of that directly. For me, the biggest saving is the procurement time. Actually, if we've got a free market trade that actually everyone can sign up to meeting the basic standards, then we, as a local authority, you don't have to keep going through those procurement tenderings every 4 to 5 years. I'm being told I need to speed up, so I will. And that saves, I think, a level of time and effort for both the local authority and all the providers concerned, and also creates greater ability to join the market. this is where we are currently. So we are currently sitting in phase 3. So we've got a working group where we're looking to start up a local authority trading company, which is probably the mechanism we think most appropriate at this stage, but we'll see where we are. And then I'm going to speed through the last few slides, but they are fully available later. This is just a couple of pictures which demonstrate the customer profile and the user, so what happens when you use it, and demonstrate the kind of the pilot, people who are already engaged in the process. One thing you'll see there is I work for the London Borough of Newham, and Newham doesn't appear on this list. Please do not read anything into that. I am just tied into a contract which precludes me from joining at this stage. But I am firmly supportive of what we're doing, and Newham will be there in the future. There's a little bit of performance data from Manchester who are doing the pilot. There is a full application pack if you're interested, a website, and you can scan and join and find out more detail, or try and grab me later if you want to talk about it in more detail. Sorry, I sped through the last few slides to make sure I was on time. But if you have any more questions, please do come and speak to me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. And yes, the slides will all be available at the end. Oh, and look at that, perfectly on time. The slides will be available at the end, and Sarah needs to go to another meeting now, but she will be back, hopefully, for the Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Adam to come up, quickly introduce yourself, and then talk about the work of the Masterminds group.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Adam Stead. I got a job title there, which changed yesterday. I'm not quite sure what my job title is, so I made it up. Principal Product Manager, Transport for Wales. I look after mobile apps and website strategy. Well, as I say, I'm not quite sure what my job title is today. I chair the Masterminds working group. You all know what mobility as a service is, right? I don't really need to explain that, do I? Let's start out with a bit of research, actually. Customer research is where the heart of Mars should start. How many of you coming to this event walked to the train station, got on a train, and then walked the last mile or so here? Show of hands, who did that? Does that describe your customer journey here today? Okay, cool. Maybe about 2/3 of the room. How many of you drove here today and parked? Boo. How many combined two transport modes together? Either took a bus and train, or bike hire, or taxi? Okay, so maybe about 20% of the room, so maybe about 20% driving as well. I don't know, it's hard to count the number of hands. Of those who stuck their hand up saying they drove here today, how many of you might have considered coming by train and public transport if there was better information or pricing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in the room. You're the target audience for Mars. Mars isn't going to change the world, but it is going to make an impact for those who could consider changing their behaviors. Sorry, consultants, that's the reality. A lot of people who were able to bring the train here, they've already completed their customer journey. We're really looking at that segment where today people are taking the car, but could take an alternative option. So Masterminds started out as an informal meetup. I used to work at West of England Combined Authority, leading, mobilising the Future Transport Zone programme. And then I took a job at Transport for Wales. And previously, we had a little informal meetup between the FTZ regions, which I really valued. And I was like, when I moved to Transport for Wales, I was like, there must be some other regions doing mobility as a service as well, exploring the concept. So Masterminds became an informal meetup that then found a home within the TTF group. What we are is a forum of public sector bodies. And our aim, effectively, is to accelerate the introduction of Mars in the UK. It means empowering citizens to make sustainable transport choices, improving integration, especially between shared mobility, ride-hailing, and active travel and other demand-responsive transports. We're also interested in the economic, social, and cultural outcomes of Mars, especially where you've got non-digital natives. They need to be considered as well. But also people who don't own a car. How do we improve access to things like cultural opportunities, education, healthcare, etc., through better integration of transport information with public service information? I come back to what is Mars. And I like Jana Sokor's model, a topology of MaaS from around 2017. Stockholm was one of the areas that first piloted MaaS. I like to come back to this model, and here's some examples of MaaS in Wales, or rather the levels of MaaS. We start at the bottom with no integration. We've got siloed transport modes, the likes of, let's say, Stagecoach bus, no offense, Stagecoach, the Next Bike, even, Uber. Actually, Uber needs to move. National Express, where when you're a customer using these transport modes, they will tell you about their services and assume that that's all you need to get from door to door. Level 1 of MaaS could be described as the integration of information, so kind of Google Maps, you know, but lots of other companies like First Bus consider and will offer other bus alternatives or train alternatives as well. They'll prioritize their own, fair enough, but it's really about that integration of door-to-door information. No one really does that on fares today. More work needs to be done in the data space. Level 2 of MaaS could be considered the ability to book and pay for that door-to-door journey, perhaps in one transaction or a basket of transactions. There's some products today like PlusBus, which has been around for 20 years. No one really knows what it is. It's a rail ticket that includes a bit of bus travel, but you can only get it in paper, so you've got to go to the station to get the ticket for the bus. That doesn't make sense. So there are ways that could be made more digital, but how about combining things like your train with your bike hire for that door-to-door value proposition? Level 3 is where you could think about this is where a lot of the hype is around the subscriptions, the all-in pass. A monthly all-in bundle that includes car club miles. Often, you know, you look at the price of these and go, how much would you be prepared to pay? You talk about a Netflix of transport, and that makes you think it's £6 a month. But try and get a monthly bus ticket for £6 and add your monthly bike hire and add your monthly car club, and it all starts adding up, and you go, what is the affordable price point? So there's areas to explore around the subscription space as to what people are prepared to pay. But the kind of holy grail of MaaS is when it unlocks the ability for wider societal benefits. One of the things that I'm really interested in is how do we make concessionary bike hire? You get a bus pass when you're over 65, why not free bike hire? So MaaS can mean many things to many different people, and we try not to judge. It's really about all of those aspects and exploring those. The Masterminds group is an informal meetup, about 90 minutes every 6 weeks. We share on our progress, inspire each other, and seek opportunities for collaboration. We've had 3 meetups since the conference, and we also had a lunch and learn from the Department for Transport's principal behavior scientist about how to change customers' behavior. Our membership includes largely combined authorities, some transports for, and some like Network Rail and National Highways as well, or whatever they're called this week. I don't like National Highways' name. It doesn't include Wales. What? But MaaS isn't just an app. A lot of people think of it as an app for journey planning and payment, but actually, this is a service blueprint of mine that there's elements of the customer journey from discovering places to go to, through journey planning, through the vending of paying for it, and the support after the journey, and also the customer relationships and the settlement and the behind the scenes, and also the orchestration. How do we get all the vehicles to the right place for where people need them? And finally, the transport network design. Why this is really important? I'll tell you about my customer journey here. How many minutes am I doing on time? I wasn't looking at my watch. Loads of time? 3 minutes, right. I'll tell you about my customer journey to get here. So I drove. I actually didn't go to my nearest train station. Hello, hey, there we go. So in traveling to this event, I didn't actually go to my nearest train station. I drove for half an hour to a train station. Actually, I drove up the M5 and along the M4 to Newport Station. I live near Bristol. And I did that because from Newport, I could get a direct train to Manchester rather than having to change trains 2 or 3 times. So I drove, I parked. It cost me 20 quid for 2 days parking. And I took the direct train to Manchester. It wasn't the train I expected. I was expecting a comfortable train, but actually it was a little urban train. It was very, very uncomfortable and noisy for a couple of hours. And then I got turfed off at Crewe because it was running late and got onto a different train. And then I came to Manchester and thought, what are my options? I used the City Mapper app to work out what the different transport providers were. I then downloaded the Borough app and unlocked a bike. I then struggled to figure out how to get through Manchester, and then I eventually found the docking station, couldn't lock the bike, had to get in touch with customer support, send them some photographs going, look, it really is in the dock, and then they gave me a refund. You go, okay, how do I integrate that customer journey into an app? Because it went wrong. The train changed, it turfed me off, I needed to replan my journey, and then I couldn't lock the bike. So all of these complex integrations need to come together to realize Maas. And some of us are trying. So there's some good examples in the UK. Hightrans have an app now. Dundee's launched one, I'll show you a screenshot. Derby's launched one, and Solent Transport have as well. A couple of regions are delivering Maas. LNER's is really interesting because it's rail-centric, very interesting to me. And Kent and Transport for Wales are finalising business cases. Solent Breeze, if you want to explore what Maas looks like in reality, download this app today. It's only got a few bus operators today because of the some commercial agreements still to come together. But it really is one of the great examples of something to look towards. And the alternative example is GetGo Dundee. GetGo Dundee is another Maas platform, but more about helping customers understand the options available in a region as well. And the Masterminds working group is really warts and all between local authorities in trying to make Maas a reality on the ground. We look at things and share complications of things like trademarks. So Solent Transport said their scheme was delayed because they hadn't got trademark agreement yet, and Dundee said, what's trademarking? So we also talk about the complexities of VAT and data sharing with local operators as well, like customer data as well. So there's a lot of hype in the Maas space. Someone was always willing to sell you an app. Consultants will tell you how Maas is going to change and result in 2% of car drivers moving over to public transport. But we're really around the practicalities of Maas and at the coalface of making it happen. And it's a great working group to really kind of get that support, answer any stupid questions, and share amongst that Maas community. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Adam. Just about on time as well, so thank you. And thank you for so bravely working through the technical hitches as well. That wasn't a way of hurrying you up, I can assure you now. Right, next we've got Shamala Evans-Gadgill from Coventry City Council, who's going to talk about the exciting work that the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Charging Group has been doing. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm Shamala Evans-Gadgill. I'm a consultant at Coventry City Council. So my background is I'm a civil engineer by background, and I'm also a part-time third-year PhD student looking at the gaps in the electric vehicle charging solutions. I am going to see, yeah, okay. So I chair the Electric Vehicle Charging Infrastructure Working Group at TTF, and all I'm doing today is giving you an update. So we had our first inaugural meeting, if you like, last year in September at the Polestar Test Center Hub in Milton Keynes. And basically, we've got sort of two subgroups. We've got a core technical working group where local authority officers who has experience in not just developing the strategy, but also delivering charging infrastructure on the highway, especially for those who don't have off-street parking facility. I mean, it's all about making sure, as a local authority, taking those people who don't have off-street parking facility on the journey with us, because all the other households, they can sort of have their own charger, but where it comes to local authorities and what their role is in delivering the charging infrastructure for their constituents and residents, it is quite a crucial role. We have, in this working group, we have 7 LA local authority members, that includes myself. And we also have a wider working group, which we have members from private sectors, chain supplier solution providers, as well as local authorities who don't have any experience or who have not even started on this journey as yet. I have no idea what this is. Okay. So our mandate last year was that there are a few documents available which gives detailed guidelines on how local authorities should roll out the charging infrastructure, and they are over 100 pages long. Like, for example, BEAM has, IET also are developing this document, but there was a need for something like what we could call a starter guide, just giving pointers on what the local authority should start with, where they should go for additional information, what their internal working team should look like, who should be involved, site selection process as an authority. Resource is always a problem with local authorities, and there is definitely skill shortage. I mean, at the moment, with some of the local authorities, this job has fallen onto officers who are, who have nothing to do with EV. They are either planning officers, highway traffic management officers, or different departmental, but just an officer who has their own job, and then something like this they are having to look at. So just to guide them, we have developed this starter guide. We are launching this today at this autumn meeting of TTF. It should be available online by end of this week, and it has taken a year to get this developed. So we have for what are the next steps for this group. So for the core technical working group, we have a meeting on 5th of December. We will be discussing framework templates. And for the wider working group, there is a proposed date of 7th of February at the Mobius Network Limited. Sorry, there's not much to say, really. The times and the agendas are to follow. Again, if anybody is interested in joining this working group, then please let any of us know, and we would love to have you on board. Less than 10 minutes.
Fantastic. Thank you. Microphone working again? Yeah. Great, brilliant. Thank you. Right, the last of the working groups that we're going to hear from before lunch is the UTMC group, which is our third double act of the day, I think, isn't it? Yeah, so we started off with the two Ronnies. We've now got, I'll let you decide who, but Matt Cartwright and Steve George.
Thank you. Thank you, Darren. Where are we going for this? There we go. Right, good morning, everybody. My name's Steve George, and I'm the lead of the UTMC working group. And I'm joined here with my colleague, Mark Cartwright, who is chair of the UTMC development group. Very short intro from me, and then I can move on to Mark, and he can run through the presentation with you. But bit of background, as many of you know, UTMC has been dormant for many years now, but with the advent of becoming a TTF working group, it's providing the opportunity now for us to say, well, okay, what does UTMC need to be for the future? And this we've kind of loosely dubbed as a UTMC 2. What you're going to see today that Mark's going to present is the output of the UTMC development group that met back in May at the TTF conference in Liverpool. So it is based on what local authorities are telling us they want, what industry suppliers are telling us that they want. And from that, Mark and I have developed a work program or a draft work program to take UTMC forward. So this is the outcome you'll be, and I'm glad to see quite a number of faces of that UDG group are actually in the audience today, so you can tell us if we've got it right or not after the presentation. So I'll now hand over to Mark in the interest of time, and we can go through from there.
Resilience, just in case. Right, UTMC moving forward. So moving forward, this is a picture which we've been showing about UTMC at least since 2004. And it remains basically what we're about, gluing things together which have historically been done separately. Now, the actual blobs that are being glued together are not necessarily the ones we would choose now, but the principle is the same. So this is a timeline of activity in UTMC. Started being conceived at the beginning of the 1990s, bit of definition, some major demonstration activities of which some people in the room were involved quite closely, and then into the commercial world at 2003-ish. And that was it, really. We kept going, we kept maintaining the thing for a while, and then it just sort of stopped. So there's been no development in UTMC since about 2010, which is well known to be quite a while ago. So where we are now is really not just trying to restart the engine, but we're changing the battery out and making sure that our tyres aren't perished and stuff like that. What we have today, not just what came out of May's TTF meeting in Liverpool, but developed through the course of discussion with some partners elsewhere during the course of it, tested with UDG, and it is outline scoping at this stage, not more than that, partly because of resource limitations, but there we are. It's certainly been a while. Certainly the pressure that we're getting from both manufacturers and users is that UTMC, because it's now mainstream in deployment, is very relevant still. And we don't want to completely throw away everything we want and replace it with new stuff. It's going to be important legacy for a long while, and because of the integration facilities built into UTMC early on, it remains a platform to do that with. But there's a lot it misses. So we need to not quite start from scratch, but rebuild things. I won't go through this detail, but those are things we need to do. The core, I think I would point as the fourth bullet, we need to make sure that we're sustainable but realistic. We want to make sure that what we're delivering is worth doing, but not just worth doing now, worth doing for a reasonable period, and we can achieve it and keep things going. So, the blobby diagram I gave you in the beginning basically locates the function of UTMC as I see it, as Steve sees it, I hope, in the space. We sit between highways authorities, local highways authorities in particular, but not necessarily, and suppliers who are trying to do things between them to do transport technology. In broadly the traffic management space, but that's a very, very fuzzy-edged area. And they're doing so through contracts for supply and service, okay? Basic stuff. The way that happens is through a whole bunch of different services which are picked on. And you've seen from some of the people this morning that each of those, and you'll know from your local circumstances, each of those is a minefield in itself of complexity, of taking requirements and regulations and existing legacy and local geography at the top and turning it into something you can actually make sure you've got working and usable and links in with everything else you had and so on. So, but that's what's happening, and there are a bunch of organizations around the place that are trying to deal with aspects of that, some of which are TTF working groups, and I've got those in green, some of which are not TTF working groups but are established industry bodies doing other things, and that's a very limited presentation, but it's those that we're talking to at the moment. But there's a lot of space uncovered, and it's all still stovepiped. So what UTMC, I think, wants to do is to build a structure there that links it all up so that people know where they're facing. That carries an important message about UTMC. It was quite technical. It wasn't very technical, but it was quite technical. I think we are getting away from being technical, and because basically the people that are buying the systems and operating the systems don't care about technologies, they just want it to work. But the people at the supply end do care about the technology. What we're about is architecting all this stuff in such a way as there can be a sensible technical conversation between users and suppliers about what they're doing. Some of that will get technical in that we will need to have a way of being a conduit for global requirements down into the individual working groups that are dealing with local things. So we will, for example, to take a very specific example, take anything we say about traffic management interfaces in UTMC at the moment, we will seek to hand that off to Topaz to hold, because they're the people that do that, and they will maintain it, we hope, and we will point to them and say, if you're doing traffic management, traffic control systems, those are the things you need to be aware of and you need to be specifying. They will have a much better idea about the details that need to change in there. They will maintain those standards. We'll keep aligned with that. At the top, we've got people like MaaS, that various people have spoken about today. MaaS is very much a policy concept, doesn't really have a nailed down definition that a supplier can deal with. What do you mean by MaaS in your context, as our previous conversation just had? So when you're buying a MaaS, what do you actually want to buy? And it's going to be bits of some of these things all linked together and probably a whole bunch of other things that aren't there as well. Because there's a lot of general contextual stuff about communication systems and security systems and governance systems, which will apply across several areas. There's payment systems. So that, I think, is where we see UTMC as needing to go. Now, that's a big ask, and we're not going to be able to deal with all of it. A lot of it will be just as being as postman, as I said, as referee maybe, as friendly guidance, and we will play that as we need to. So that just basically says what I've just said. Again, the bottom bullet is perhaps the one I'd like to focus on. We can't just jump away from the current structure, and that means of UTMC as well as of systems and practices in place. We need a process by which we achieve this. So we do have, as Steve was saying, an outline work plan which is good for, well, I've said 23, 24. We could, if money is available, start earlier than that. And it goes through those things. And I'm not going to go through these text slides. It will be available. This is what will effectively be written up as our proposal to DFT for the things we need to do. But if I go back, you'll see that the key of this is that we are going to be looking both at what there is in UTMC now that needs to be sustained or needs to be evolved or needs to be abandoned, where it needs to go, whether we keep it or whether we hand it off, but also some new things that we now realise need to be brought into the UTMC architecture, things to do like with things that we haven't historically done, like information publication, for example. And I think that's probably it. And I'm not Clearview Intelligence, so I won't be them.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Steve. And thank you for, again, sticking to time. So that's it. We've heard from 4 of the TTF working groups. Now, any of you that have been paying attention will know that there are actually 6 TTF working groups, which means there are 2 we haven't heard from. And there's a reason for that. So one of the groups that we haven't heard from today is the data group. Now, I think we've all worked out over a number of years that data is pretty central to what we do. I think, you know, if you think about the old statement from the Clinton campaign, it talked about it's the economy stupid. Well, I think in this world, it's data stupid. Data is the center of everything we do, and it kind of drives all the services that we've talked about today at one level or another. So having a data group is pretty essential to what we do in TTF. And we started to think about that, and we thought about that in Liverpool back in May, and we got some interest from DFT, from colleagues from the data part of DFT, in chairing that. Now, unfortunately, some staff changes there and some people moving around in that part have meant that that group has kind of stalled a little bit. And although it's still essential that we have a group, at the moment it's not really in existence. So there's not really much to come and talk about today. But we have a kind offer from Sistra, from one of the suppliers in the room today, from Evans-Gadgill at Sistra, potentially to chair that group and to restart it again. And I think that's really positive. I think it's really great. I think it's really great to see a supplier that maybe not many of us have heard of in the road transport sector wanting to get involved and wanting to put some effort into this. And I think it's really great that potentially restarts the data group again. So is this mic going on and off? Or is it? It is the mic. It's not me. I can show you that. And I think that's really important. I think as that gets firmed up and announced, and let's see if this one's any better. That's all right. If you remember nothing else from today, you'll remember this. I think it's really important that group restarts. I think it's really important that we once we get that in place, we have a wide-ranging conversation among the people in this room and the people interested in TTF about what that data group should do and what interests us. And I think you've heard today from the other working groups, they've all got a good idea of what they need to do. They're all doing really important work and they're all really helping in their sectors. And I think for the data group, there is a real opportunity to restart that and think about the work we would like to do, the work we would like to contribute to. And that hopefully is a conversation we can open up online after this event as and when that group reforms. The other group we haven't heard from today is the SPATULA group. And the reason for that is because the SPATULA group has been doing some really, really good stuff. Not that the other groups haven't, but the SPATULA group has really had its moment in the sun in the last few weeks with a fantastic event that Andy organised for the group at Millbrook, at the UTAC Millbrook Proving Ground in Bedfordshire. And Andy's going to spend a bit of time talking about that. So we've given him a little bit of a larger slot on the agenda straight after lunch, and a little bit of a taster before lunch. We're going to show you the video of the day just to get you completely revved up for what you're going to see after lunch. Right, so just as a quick break on that, so we will come back and have some Q&A in a few minutes, but before we do that, we have our second sponsor slot. So I would like to invite Peter Catterall from Clearview to come and tell us about Clearview. And again, thank you for sponsoring the event today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Hopefully the microphone will last.
Well, we've got real challenge in technology here because I'm going to swap the laptop over because the videos wouldn't play earlier. So this is a moment of truth now. Let's see what happens. Look at that. You see? Seamless. What could possibly go wrong? So, sorry about the brief interruption there. Yeah, nobody will know. Nobody will know. My name's Pete Cattell. I'm from Clearview Intelligence. If you haven't heard of Clearview Intelligence, I'll try and summarise as briefly as I can. We're a UK company. We have our own software and hardware development people. And we work in multiple different areas, but they generally break down into vehicle detection and kind of road safety solution delineation. What I want to talk to you today is about some stuff that we've been working on over the past 12 months or probably more. I should try and explain, what we're doing out in the marketplace to try and move things forward. So, the first thing is this scheme that we've been working on with Kia and with National Highways, and we call it the Smart Renewables Project. So this was a scheme near Evesham, and it's effectively trying to bring motorway level detection and signalling to an A road. And in that area, there is no technology, there is no power, there is no comms. So we've worked as a group to deliver this kind of motorway level signalling along this stretch of road at the A46 near Evesham. The backbone of all of that is our data platform. It's our data management platform that we call Insight. And just to kind of explain that a little, Insight kind of breaks down into 4 different areas. There's Insight Places, which is kind of the technology you will see in a local area. So it will be things like traffic counters, active travel counters, cycle pedestrian counters, road condition monitors, environmental monitors, stuff like that all kind of comes into our platform in the Places area. We have another section we call Insight Video. So this is where CCTV and some video analytics stuff is going on, and I'll touch on that in a little bit more detail in a moment. Insight Parking, probably don't need to explain that too much. It's about parking. And then the final bit is our insight journey time. So this uses crowdsourced data to deliver accurate journey times, basically on any road, anywhere in the UK, in fact, anywhere in the world in reality. So we're using crowdsourced data, and basically to use it on a map, you click where point A is, you click where point B is, we join up the dots, and then we can tell you every minute, every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes, however often you want to know what is the current journey time on that road, and we do it very accurately and very reliably, all from the Insight platform. So to go back to the Smart Renewables project, this is kind of a view of what there's multiple positions along the road. And basically the key point is the power supply. So it's solar and it's wind turbines, and that generates around about 55 watts. And our Insight platform is monitoring that power usage. So we're making sure that the power budget is available for the other bits of kit that are on that road so that we can manage the solution. And those other bits of kit are things like road condition monitors, that I'll show you a bit more detail, air quality monitors, CCTV, computer animation, computer vision, and variable message signs. And we're talking to the message signs there down to a pixel level. And this is all done over open standards. So we're using wherever there's an open standard, we're doing that all through the open standard interfaces. So this is a GIF of somebody actually using Insight. So this is them turning on the various different things that we can monitor with our air quality monitor. And you can see there now along that route where there's problems. You can see the red bit at the bottom. And when the user actually clicks on a particular location, you then get a pop-up that kind of gives you a bit more granular detail. So this gives you a real-time view of what's going on that piece of road at that time. But it's also being stored in the database so that it can be analysed for historical purposes later on. And that's kind of a view of what Insight generally looks like. The look and feel is fairly consistent across all of the different devices and platforms. So that's air quality monitoring. We've got road condition monitoring. So this is monitoring the sort of stuff that you'd expect from a road condition monitor. So surface conditions, whether it's dry, wet, snow, ice, stuff like that. Important thing is both the air quality monitors and these road condition monitors are powered by this renewable energy. So all of that information is being sent back but using renewable energy because there is no power and no comms at this site. This is all being done effectively just from these solar panels and these wind turbines. Another area is CCTV. So this is another view of Insight. So here we are, we've got a CCTV. And I wouldn't say this is a CCTV platform. You wouldn't manage a city centre on this. But you can see there a view of a CCTV image. And as long as it's using that OnViv S standard, then we can take that video feed into our system. And as I say, you wouldn't use it to monitor a city centre, but if you're monitoring a location, a junction, or where there's some technology, and you need to know, why is the air quality so bad, you can have a little look and see what's going on the ground. So this is new news. This is kind of I think the first time I've presented this bit publicly. We have new technology that we've been working on for a while now, and this effectively allows us to take any video camera that follows that OnViv standard. We can take that into Insight, and then we can run computer intelligence on that to actually identify what's in the image. So we can identify cars and people. We can identify whether they're lorries or cars and so on. All again done via solar power or renewable energy. We've also identified a custom router that allows us to compress that data enough so that we can stream the video from these cameras. So these are individual cameras out at the roadside. We're streaming the video back to our Insight platform and then doing the number crunching on the Insight platform to understand what's there in the image in front of us. The next step of that is what we call the AI edge. So this is a box that will be fitted out at the edge of the environment, if you like, and the cameras will feed into this box. So the box will then do the number crunching. So the box will identify, is it a car, is it a person, is it a cyclist, and so on, and then just feed that data back. Again, all wireless and wired comms, and each of these devices can take a feed from 4 cameras. So these are not special cameras, they're just fairly standard OnViv S CCTV cameras, effectively. Importantly, we can pass through the video. So the video that comes off those cameras can pass through this device, and we can blur out faces and we can blur out registration numbers and things, which makes it easier to manage the whole implications of GDPR. And also this edge device will have ability to provide closing contact. So if we detect a particular thing happening, we can trigger a sign or we can open a barrier or whatever it is we need to do. So that's a brand new project for us. Timescales, we're going to have this available Q1 next year, and to give you a flavour of the things that we can deliver. So 8 classes, so pedestrians, cyclists, lorries, cars, and so on. We can understand the vehicle speed, what lane it's in, the headway and the gap between the various vehicles. And we can also identify incidents. So is a vehicle travelling in the wrong direction? Is a pedestrian in the middle of a dual carriageway? So we can detect all of those sort of things and raise alerts immediately when we detect those things. And as I said, we've got real-time blurring out of faces and number plates and so on to help people cope with the implications of GDPR. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like, there is a video. There's a link to the video there, so if you get this presentation, you can click on that link and you'll be able to see the video, because I suspect you won't be able to see this video. But this is a video of the system in action. So it's powered by Insight, as I said, so this is all new development for us. It's a brand new product. So here we are looking at a CCTV image, if you like, and then we can click on to effectively get the overview to understand what's happening in that CCTV image. We'll zoom into that image in a moment, but you should be able to see there that we're now detecting the vehicles as they're going down that road, and we're classifying the vehicle as they're passing down the road as well. I'm fairly sure now we'll zoom into that and we can see it in a little bit more detail. It seems to go so much quicker when you're sitting at your desk rather than in front of a room full of people. So there we are. You can see we're now detecting each of these vehicles, and you can see we're putting a red box around the number plate because we're also identifying the number plate on the vehicle. So we can capture that information and we can store it, but we can hash it so that it's encrypted data. We can report on it, so we can store that data so you can look at historical information. And you can see here a longer view, and those are the classes that we'll be able to classify the information to. So you can see we're detecting each of the individual vehicles, we're tracking them, we're working out the speed, the direction, and so on, all from a standard CCTV camera. I don't think this will replace traditional traffic counters. That's our background. We do traffic counters, but I think it's a new thing for us, and actually is a very flexible solution. And again, comes back into Insight, so can be reported on. This is a slightly different scheme. This was a scheme that we've just completed in Hull. This is on a place called Stone Ferry Road. It's a road that links the north of Hull down to where the docks are. And it's a very busy road, lots of very heavy vehicles going down there. And Hull were keen to reduce, there was a lot of collisions on that road, so they were keen to improve the air quality, reduce collisions, and actually improve facilities for active travel, so pedestrians and cyclists. So they broadened the pavement a little and then made the pavement effectively a cycle path. The challenge was at those 5 locations you can see there where the yellow arrows are, there's effectively a conflict where vehicles are turning at those intersections and are possibly conflicting with the cyclist who's going straight along. To improve the conditions for the cyclist, they built a tabletop at each of those intersections. So as a cyclist goes along, the road surface comes up so the cyclist can go straight across. So as you'll know in the highway code, that's perfectly acceptable for a cyclist to effectively just go straight across the junction because they're the one that's going straight ahead and they're the vulnerable user, and the car drivers have to give way. The challenge was the car drivers wouldn't necessarily even be looking for a cyclist coming along on the pavement. So our challenge, and we're working with Hull, is how can we draw the attention of the drivers to the fact that there's this cyclist here. So we're using some of our detection technologies to detect the cyclist as they approach the junction, and then we're flashing what we call an IRS2. To have one here. So this is an IRS2, Intelligent Road Stud number 2. It's got LEDs, it's physically wired, and we can flash it and we can control this from our controller. As they say, a picture paints 1,000 words, so I'll show you a video of this. Again, there's a link to the video in the presentation, but this is a video, this is Stone Ferry Road. So this is Stone Ferry Road. You'll see there's a fair mix of vehicles, and it's actually quite a busy stretch of road. But the key thing is we've got cyclists now coming along the pavement there. This is an overhead shot of one of the junctions. You can see there the tabletop, and you can imagine that the cyclist would be going straight along there, but being met by heavy vehicles turning across their path is probably not an ideal situation. So this is a view of what the cyclist sees, but as they approach the junction and go across that tabletop, we flash these LED studs in the road. Really nice illustration of it here from a cyclist perspective. So he's cycling down, we've just detected him, and then we flash the studs to warn drivers that there's cyclists in the area. And you'll see the driver's eye view here as the driver's coming out of the side turning. This is on the other side of the road now. There's 3 junctions along here, and you'll see as the cyclist is approaching, we start flashing the studs to warn drivers, and you can see the driver's view of it, and we get a split screen now to show you the 2 alongside each other. So you can see effectively the cyclist perception and the driver's perception. So the studs are flashing, it warns the driver there's a cyclist there, and it enables cyclists to feel a lot safer. It's been very well received locally. Lots of people quite excited when they've seen it in use, and we're really quite proud of it. It's been a really good solution for us. So that's the scheme that's up on Stone Ferry Road, and that's quite innovative, we think. I'm on the final leg now, you'll be pleased to know. Final product I want to talk to you about is a thing we call Click Light. If you've known Clearview for any length of time, you'll know us for our LED road studs. So this is our LED cat's eyes, if you will. Solar powered, charge up during the day, and then they illuminate at night. The drawback with these is you need to core drill the road to install these, and it's a bit alien for a lot of the white lining contractors is how do you install these. So we've developed a new version that's basically will click into a standard P09 cast iron housing. So the normal highway contractors know all about installing those, so they're very happy to install those. And it means it's very easy to swap a traditional retro-reflective road stud for our solar road stud, and you then get all of the benefits of the solar road stud, the visibility from 900 metres instead of 90 metres. So, 10 times better visibility. We've got sites that use these solar road studs, and we've reduced the number of nighttime collisions by over 70%, just because people can see the layout of the road more clearly when it's a twisting environment. So that's a brand new product for us. It's currently going through the type approval process. We're hoping, with fingers crossed, that will be completed middle of next year. But certainly the key thing is we're keen to let people know it exists so they can put it into their plans and designs for the future. So the benefits of this road stud, it's removable. So if you have contraflow, you can take the solar stud out while the contraflow is in place, and then you can pop it back in again afterwards. Easy to replace, easy to maintain, and it's fitted in an industry standard way. So that's the end of where I want to get to, but really I wanted to just kind of draw your attention to our thinking. We've recently just completed our sustainability strategy, and it's quite an innovative strategy, and it's all about a small business generating a big impact. And a key way that we can make a big impact is to enable our customers and clients, our local authorities and so on, to use things like renewable energy, things like solar studs, to improve their carbon reductions. So we're focusing very much on renewable energy. And that actually makes the implementation of these solutions easier, because you don't have to worry about whether there is power there, whether there's comms there, because we can deliver those through a sustainable kind of renewable energy solution. That makes it much more cost effective to deploy, and then that helps us with our constant innovation to kind of go around that virtuous circle, really, to look at how we can improve from our own perspective internally our carbon credentials, as it were, but also enabling our customers to be able to benefit from those things that we're doing. So hopefully that was of some interest. We're just outside the door there. Very happy to talk to any of you. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. And I'd just like to say thank you to WSP, who presented this morning, Peter and Clearview, who presented now, and PTV, who are presenting this afternoon, as our 3 sponsors of the day. And as Peter just said, in the room outside where we'll be doing refreshments and lunch, you can speak to all the sponsors, and please do. Please have a look at what they're doing. And thank you, Peter, for bringing some stuff to show us as well. That's brave, and thank you for doing that. And I would just like to say that we've talked about the next event, which will be next May in somewhere to get to be decided, our next conference. We will be having another autumn event at some point in the autumn. There's the Innovation Festival coming up in the summer. All of these have the opportunity for sponsorship, and we'd really love to work with more of you. And I know over the last year or so we've worked with many of the companies in the room here, but please think about coming and helping us by sponsoring the TTF. It's a great way to help maximise the amount we get out of the public money that goes into it. It allows us to run bigger and better events, and it allows you to come and speak to as many local authorities as we can get in the room. So I think it's a great opportunity. Please, in the future, think about sponsoring that. For the last 20 minutes or so, we've got a question and answer session with the members of the working groups that we've heard from. I'm pleased to say Sarah's rejoined us, so that's great. So we've got all 4 of them together. We heard some really great stuff there from a wide range of issues around smart parking and around mobility as a service, around EV charging, around the evolution of UTMC and the standards work. I think there's an awful lot to go out there. So let's have some questions. And I think we have a roving mic somewhere, but seeing as I'm nearer, I will... Right, there you go. I think we need this for the front now. Can you just start by saying who you are and where you're from, please, as well?
I can. I'm Tim Ray. I'm head of systems for Unix, previously Siemens, as many of the people in the room will know us as. Just 2-part question, if I may, please. Great presentation on the UTMC standards. I think the principle of the handoff principle of if it isn't broke, don't fix it, let's stick with Topaz, etc., is a sound one, and that'll certainly reduce the scope and make your guys the potential for success much easier. I think there's probably, I speak for an awful lot of local authorities when I say that UTMC and UTC are generally perceived as 2 separate products and certainly procured in that way. Is that something which you guys would perhaps encourage, or whether or not you see these systems merging and becoming and evolving into a single sort of traffic management system? And then the second completely separate question for Peter at Clearview, a very simple one. You did note in your presentation that you felt that the AI camera-based traffic counting solution is something which possibly will be successful but won't replace traffic counters, and I couldn't think of one good reason why it wouldn't replace traffic counters. So I was just wondering why that was the case.
Yeah, I'm holding the mic, so I'll answer first. That's how it works. Are UTC and UTMC the same thing and merging together? I think not. I mean, the thing is that as we've learned perhaps the hard way, UTMC, the original concept, has been interpreted slightly differently in the marketplace. So UTMC means to certainly the customer space, less about the standards than just the consolidated approach to doing lots of traffic things together. Whereas UTC is a much more well-defined thing to do with signals and how you connect to them and what the strategies are by which you set them. I suspect we will not try and buck the market by trying to force people to use the terms in the same space. Will UTC enlarge itself internally to become effectively a UTMC product? Well, that's over to people like you. I suspect there will always be things that you'll be wanting, even within Unix, we're wanting to connect to outside, the parking people, the infrastructure people and so on, where the larger UTMC will have things to say. Did you want to add anything to that?
I think you've covered it quite well.
Right, I shall hand the microphone.
I'd be quite happy, frankly, if the camera would replace all counters. I honestly don't think it will. We've been doing traffic counting and classification and stuff for a long time, and when you kind of see where these things are often needed, you can't always get a nice view of what's going on because of the physical infrastructure. So you need to be at a certain position to be able to get a nice clear view of it. You might be surrounded by big buildings or whatever, and you just can't get in there. So there's certain instances where, just because of where it is, the lighting conditions, what else is going on around, it's horses for courses. We don't intend to stop doing our loop-based counters, our LiDAR-based counters, our radar counters, because we think there is still a place for those. I think the important thing from my perspective is, You don't have to choose. We can do all of those different technologies, and they all end up in the same place, in the same insight platform, so you can still analyse the data as if it doesn't matter what the sensor is, it's giving you the same information. Did that answer the question? Whew, got away with it. Yeah.
Well done. Next question. Any more questions? We have a question down. Mr. Graham.
Thank you. I'm Andy. Question to the panel and to myself, do we need any more TTF expert groups? I was thinking of Mark's lovely diagram first seen drawn in Word Perfect in 1993 of gluing stuff together. It seems to me TTF could be gluing together lots of specialist areas. I think we've dropped a number of TTF expert groups perhaps in the history. Do we need any more?
We have evolved, yeah. There have groups that have been and gone, and I think we've had some task and finish groups that have done a thing and then departed. Do we need any more groups? I don't know, to be honest, but I do know a way to find the answer. I think this is almost like this is planned, Andy. You will all see on your table there's a little pile of small pieces of card, and they basically ask you a number of questions. They ask you which of the groups would you like to become involved in. Now you've heard from them. Please fill them in. They ask you who you are, because that's quite useful to know. But they also ask you if there's any other groups that you think we are missing. Now, I can assure you, if you fill that in, we will check through them. And if there is a consensus, if we find a few people asking for the same thing, then we will think about that. And we have some ideas anyway. There are some issues that I know we're not covering. But I think we have to be careful about the fact that we are all volunteers, and as we know, volunteers don't even get paid. And so there's a limit to what we can do, and there's a limit to what we can do with the resources we have in the TTF. So we need to not grow this too much, but certainly if there are other areas that are of particular interest, then we certainly can set up more groups. Does anybody on the panel want to add anything to that? Any ideas that anybody has for how groups could grow or expand?
I'll comment, since it was my diagram you referenced. I don't know the answer to the question, but I do know that there are many things which a TTF working group could be created for. The comment is that we need to be aware that the TTF is not the only place that is working on this stuff. And so we need to know where there is going to be an area where TTF working group is going to add value beyond stuff that's already happening out in the space. And I'll take a very specific example. In the public transport space, for example, there is Arctic, has been there for a while, continues to do great work, see no reason for a new TTF working group in that space. Whether there are others which are only half dealt with outside and need to be aligned more closely is a more complex question.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sarah.
I'd probably say from a smarter parking point of view, the national parking platform will kind of get siphoned off as its own thing when it forms its own trading company, and then parking will start looking at other projects. So I kind of think, for me, you get natural progression as is, and I think we're almost at the point where national parking platform will come out of smarter parking because it's been developed, and then something else will come in to fill that space.
I think we should also have something like the highways traffic management working group, because, I mean, all of these are typical sort of services that are on the highway. So bringing joining the dots, as they say, so bringing the parking, the cycling, what was just mentioned by Clearview, all of this together, it's a highways department within an authority that looks after this. I think it'll be good to have that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few interesting points there. I think Mark's point is a very good one, that there are lots of groups out there that we shouldn't be trying to recreate, but we should be looking to link to. And there is a very complex diagram we're forming at the moment about how the TTF links into all these other groups, which we will start to publicise soon. And that talks about looking for some of these linkages. So yes, we will do that. I think Sarah, you're right as well, that actually, these aren't task and finish groups. They will evolve, and they will do work that finishes and then do more work and do new things. And I think there's an ask on all of us, really, to keep informing the groups and keep moving them forward and keep keep them relevant and doing the kind of work that we want to do. I think we've got a couple more questions. I think we've got Daniel there, and then we've got Dave there. So we'll take Daniel first, please.
Thank you. Daniel Ruiz, Office of Rail and Road, formerly TTF. Just on the Arctic point, Arctic sat at that table back in Earl's Court, wherever it was, many years ago when this was first conceived. So they are integrated, hopefully still. Point on data. You said data is the thing. It concerns me a bit if there is a block on progress with shaping not just the data, how it's all coordinated, but how it all comes together and turns into intelligence. So I'd push to make sure that the working group on data takes the initiative, and we don't wait for ministers to make decisions. We just present what we think is the right way to do things, and hopefully that will get accepted and become apolitical rather than a political hot potato. So that's not a question, it's a statement. Question on EV charging infrastructure. Are you aware of the work that's been done by some of the sub-national transport bodies? Specifically, I know that Transport for the South East has a project ongoing about shaping strategy and policy for EV infrastructure, which sounds like it would complement what we're doing here.
Yeah, I think the group, as a local authority, the core working group, will be aware of different various projects around the strategy side of it. But what we are looking at is exactly that, pointing the local authorities to all these different, not just the documents, but the guidances that are available or being worked on or developed. So that is the core objective of this working group, really.
It's very valuable
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, can I provide a comment on the data from a Mars perspective? Often data is seen as the kind of output of the system, but for Mars, data is fundamental for customers to be able to engage with transport. So there's a couple of aspects of data as an input into Mars and an output from it. The input into Mars is something where today we've got a lot of open data sets like Bus Open Data Service. They've got the national rail systems for train information. A lot of that could be extended to provide an even better customer experience. For instance, about the facilities on board a vehicle. What type of seating is it? Is there catering available? Are the toilets working? That can be very important to some customers. And from more of a highways perspective, in Wales we've got a concept of active travel approved routes, where each local authority has had to identify roads or cycleways that achieve a certain level of quality. We haven't quite worked out yet how to pass that information to customers. There's an onus on local authorities to produce a map of all of their network, which they've kindly done in GIS systems, which are of no use to someone who's considering cycling for the first time. So we need to think about the user experience for this data and how it manifests in a way that customers can understand it. But then the Mars solutions, from being effectively a mobile phone app that's in someone's pocket, we can know where they started and ended their trip. We can know what they searched for, which options they took, or which ones they discarded. And then use that to inform transport network design and modeling. For instance, contrasting the journey planning recommendations of a cycling journey planner versus the options that are used in transport modeling, where it thinks people might go, and then we can look at the observed data from the app and say, where did they actually go? And then how do we use this to refine our models, refine our transport network design, improve our pricing, improve the timetabling, and look at what connections do people make? So there's a whole wealth of data that can come out of our Mars initiative, but there's also loads of data that's needed to make that happen as well. So yeah, data's going to rule the world.
I agree, data's going to rule the world. That's where, for me, the National Parking Platform comes into its own, because it will consolidate all the data from all the local authorities and be able to turn out something that could be used by other industries to influence people's behaviour. So whether that's electric charging, cycle hubs, and all of those other things around the periphery, I think all of that will link in together quite neatly.
Thank you. Just before we move on to Dave's question, just to quickly go back to that first point, Daniel, about who else is in the room. Well, I think just to say today, so we've got Arctic in the room there, we've got Tim over there. British Parking Association, we've got people in the room from there. Obviously, Elquig are here. We've got people, we've got Martin and Gaffar from the IHE here. I think there are probably some other groups represented. I think we're doing quite well at linking out into the groups, but it's definitely something we need to do better, and we need to get more people in the room together, I think. So, yeah, absolutely. Dave. And, of course, we've got Dave, who represents Streetwise as well, which brings together all the UK national transport bodies. So, there we go.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. So that was the comments. I'm Dave Denner, Welsh Government Technology Manager for the Strategic Road Network, but also the current chair of the UK Lighting and Technology Board and the chair of the Streetwise Group. So it's all the stars are aligning. So back to Andy's comment earlier, now, do we need more working groups? We are trying to look at some of this. There's a lot of duplication. You know, we've said last night at the networking event, you know, there's a lot of the same faces turning up at the same groups. So we need to sort of streamline a little bit of this and put our energy and focus in the right place. A lot of it boils down to funding. So obviously we used to have an awful lot of money into the ITS world from Europe, and that tap has been turned off. Hence the reason why the Streetwise Group and all the devolved nations are working with the Transport Technology Forum to move forward and to map out a future. The Streetwise Group used to sponsor the Datex 2 and the standards around that. So now that would find a natural home under this new data group. So behind the scenes, there's an awful lot of work going on where we can try to pull some of these groups and some of this information together to make it a lot easier. And events like this will only help.
Here, here. Well said, Dave. Absolutely. Right. Just before I move on to the video, which I know Andy's itching to show us, I'm just going because I just want to put the panel through one last bit of torment before getting the free lunch. So I just want in one sentence from each of you. So TTF is funded by government. It's funded by DFT and Innovate UK. Just in one sentence, what do you think government can do to make the work or to make the deliverables of your group better? And you're not allowed to say more money because that's obvious.
That's a tough question.
Sorry.
Probably, if National Parking Platform is where we're at, is having a clear, defined understanding of where that sits. So if you look at the Holland model, it's DVLA. Any parking person in the room knows how challenging it is to work with the DVLA to get a level of change within them, and it's how we bring them along on the journey with us to move them into the 21st century with everyone else.
Fantastic, great. No, you're along the line, you're all
I think there's work that, I didn't say money, work that DFT could be doing in the space to, let's say, open up MaaS and make it easier for local authorities and regions to deploy MaaS. And I imagine there's kind of that, I'm going to apologise for it, but that engagement with between DFT and the groups themselves to inform the strategy for what DFT should be doing or could be doing to make lives easier for the regions to improve transport.
Oh, it is a tough one, isn't it? Without mentioning money, but I think within the EV infrastructure space, I think DFT could do more by doing a lot more awareness sort of service, if you like. There is still a need to make a general member of public understand, the why of what we are doing in this space. There is not enough awareness solutions being done at the moment.
Related comment, I suppose, to what others have said. I think it would be nice to know what DFT wants out of this. There are a bunch of external things that DFT does in terms of legislation and regulation and funding out in the wider world. As far as what we're concerned, though, you're primarily a policy forum, and we want to know which bits of your policy do you think that we can really get to grips with in order to leverage the innovation in the market and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree, Mark. I think that's where we need the interaction with DFT, is to figure out, well, what are we doing is actually delivering policy for DFT. And I think particularly when we talk about legislation, Traffic Management Act and so on, it's really providing the platform for us to develop the services and systems that are needed to deliver policy, and especially over the long term, not just short-termism. We need long-term, consistent sort of support and help in that.
Fantastic, thank you all. Well, we had nothing else to do, so that's given us some things to go and do for the next few months, so that's been really helpful. So just before I ask you to say thank you to the panel, can I just remind you to fill in the little cards and please think about which groups you'd want to contribute to, which new groups we should have. Can I ask you to thank the panel for their contributions, please, and Peter as well. Andy.
Thank you very much. Between you and lunch, so I'll be quick. People say we do techie demos. The reason we do techie demos is because you can't sometimes understand what it's going to look like in the car or on the cycle or whatever. So what we did in SPATULA group was we got a load of people together and we kindly were allowed to use the UTAC testing ground in Millbrook, and we made a video of some real stuff in real vehicles using good old-fashioned cellular phone. And the idea was not necessarily to show the art of the possible, but to try and get people's imagination fired up with some stuff that's very near to market, almost at market. The reason we used a test track was not because we couldn't show it on real roads, but as you'll see, it's very difficult to get a fire engine to turn up when you want one, unless you've got some matches and whatever. And it's very difficult to crash cars as well. So we made a video. Some of you will have seen it already. This is the new director's cut, courtesy of Steven Spielberg over here. So if you've all got your popcorn ready, let's see if we can get the video to work.
Hello, I'm Steve Gooding. In my role as chairman of the Transport Technology Forum, I get to hear about a lot of interesting developments, and I get to read about a lot of interesting developments. But this is about seeing them in action. This is technology that's not from tomorrow's world. This is technology that's here and now and very, very near market. So when you're watching the video that follows, I hope you'll be thinking how this technology could help you, whether you're trying to achieve more efficient, safer, cleaner transport. All of these things are on the cards. And as a driver, you can see them in my car. I don't want to have any number of different devices stuck on the windscreen or across the dashboard. I want an integrated service. So if you watch this video, you're going to see evidence of that too. I hope this will be a genuinely interesting and thought-provoking session for you. So with no further ado from me, let's roll the camera.
The Transport Technology Forum's SPATULA working group demonstrations involved a range of connected vehicle solutions, starting with how temporary and fixed traffic signs can be relayed into vehicles without any human intervention. We set up a temporary variable message sign and automatically replicated that wording on both the vehicle's standard head unit and a mobile phone using an app with standard cellular communications.
Traffic advisory from test team to end of roadworks, 20 miles, 24 minutes.
And it's not just VMS. In this demonstration, information from fixed road signs was automatically displayed in vehicle 2.
Traffic advisory from test team roadworks ahead.
So they actually know if they've been knocked down and things, don't they?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
We also set up a temporary traffic signal and demonstrated how it can be displayed in real time within the vehicle, adding how long until the lights change and advice on the speed to drive at to arrive on green, so reducing emissions. It's what's known as green light optimal speed advice, or GLOSA. eCall is an automated emergency alert system which sends messages for help when a vehicle is involved in a collision. We simulated a crashed vehicle and showed how drivers and emergency services could, within seconds, receive detailed, important information about the vehicle, including its location, vehicle make and model. Here on the left-hand side, a Toyota Corolla.
Traffic advisory from test team caution. eCall activated ahead. Slow down. Toyota Corolla hatchback.
A further service we showed was warning of an emergency vehicle approaching when you're driving. Here we sent in-vehicle warnings of a fire engine approaching, which improves driver response rates.
Warning, emergency vehicle approaching.
Warning, emergency vehicle approaching. Warning, emergency vehicle approaching.
Here's another emergency vehicle warning system, an app-based technology which warns road users even if they can't see blue lights or hear a siren. In this example, the role of the emergency vehicle is being played by a grey people carrier. We also demonstrated automated warnings to drivers of the presence of vulnerable road users, in this case, a cyclist. There was also a simulation of how the same technology can capture a wide range of data from large volumes of vehicles, helping improve traffic management and safety. We even showed technology that alerts drivers on narrow roads of another vehicle coming towards them. This includes warnings to stop at a safe place. In this footage, you can see what the drivers of two vehicles approaching each other would see, so one stops and waits for the other to pass, reducing the need to reverse. Variable speed limits are common on our motorways, but in-car systems up till now have struggled to keep up with them changing dynamically. Here, variable speed limits are simulated in-car, and there's even a warning when the vehicle is going too fast. As you can see, the variable speed limit changes as a new section of road is entered without the need for road signs. These demonstrations prove that connected vehicle services aren't far in the distance, but some solutions are here and now. Some, like Glossa and eCall, are starting to be available already. This day showed that connected vehicles, as opposed to automated ones, are a quick route to safer, greener, more efficient roads for all users.
So there you go. If the people who are involved in putting that together, so that's George, Standby, HSL, just stand up so people know who you are. These are people who've got interesting things to plumb into, so go and talk to them, yeah? There will be, as in all movies, the UTAC 2 coming probably in May next year. What we'd like to do is invite now people who've got parking, curbside, anything else that we can demonstrate in a controlled environment, but is near to market. We'd like you to come and make sure that we have as much of that on display as we can. Just a plug for December the 14th at the Smart Mobility Living Lab. We'll be focusing there on the data that you can get out of vehicles rather than putting services into it, because obviously you can get data from vehicles out on test tracks. So I think that's just about 1 minute over. So thank you very much for watching the movie. Do come and ask questions, and we'll go into a bit more detail about that after lunch. Thank you.